This video is about all the tools that we use on our farm. We've used a lot of different tools in the past, and we pretty much got it down to just a few of our favorites, and basically the most necessary tools we keep. Everything else we've sort of cycled out, and basically I'm trying to show everybody how few tools you need on a farm. A lot of different sources will tell you that you need to invest in different equipment, but in reality, if you're farming a quarter acre to maybe even like an acre, a lot of those tools aren't completely necessary. So I'm going to show you just the bare essentials if you're going to start a farm from scratch, what you're going to need. Besides being an American Gothic, it's really important to have a pitchfork on your farm. You're going to use this anytime you're doing compost, moving stuff that's heavy. You know, it's a really good way to move stuff around. So right here I've got a couple different types of rakes. I've got your run-of-the-mill rake, and I've also got a landscaping rake. These are cheap and really effective on the farm. They're really great for clearing weeds, clearing pathways, just making your space look nice and tidy. And that's one of the most important things for running a small farm, is having everything really efficient and effective. So shovel. Basically when you're buying a shovel, every farm is going to really need one. It's good for earthworks, it's good for moving compost, it's good for digging beds. It's just pretty much invaluable tool. Basically the thing that I always recommend is that you've got these places for your foot to go on, and that it's a heavy duty shovel. You don't want to cheap out when you buy a shovel, because this is going to be something you're going to be using all the time. So that's definitely on my to-do list. If you don't have a shovel already, get a good garden shovel. Maybe a small one as well would work great, but you're definitely going to want a big one for moving dirt and that can handle some abuse. Not completely necessary, but definitely a helpful tool that we have on our farm. This is a stirrup hoe. Again, it's another really cheap tool. They're pretty durable, especially if you get one that's all metal down at the bottom. These things are definitely going to help you clear your pathways, get weeds out quickly. We use these quite a bit on our farm, and I recommend any beginning farmer, especially if your plot hasn't been farmed on before, go ahead and get yourself one of these to keep the weeds back. We don't have a ton of need for these out here in California, but a couple times a year we get heavy rainfall. Also when our sprinklers break and stuff like that, it's really good to have a nice pair of boots, something that the bottoms are tough, that are waterproof, that you're not sloshing around all day when you need them. I'm usually wearing a pair of Bluntstones myself, but you know, just a nice pair of waterproof boots like this can get the job done. You know, we're not usually moving a whole bunch of dangerous stuff, so I'm not worried about the steel toe, but you know, obviously that depends on whatever situation you're in. So I always recommend having a pair of boots on hand. So this is a garden seeder, and this is a push behind seeder. So this is the Earthway model. The Earthway model isn't completely necessary, but any small farm is really going to need a seeder. Anything that you're putting directly into the ground, this is going to work. They come with a bunch of different size plates for different size crops, and as you can see, ours gets tons of use. It's always dirty because we're using it pretty much all the time. We're putting in onions with these, we're putting down radishes, turnips, any kind of root crop. Whatever kind of seeder you need to get, the last thing you want to do is be going around putting your seeds into the bed like that. It's not going to be straight. This is just a lot better thing to use, and any small farmer absolutely needs one of these. So these are large garden snips, and I'm not sure what the actual name of them, but you're definitely going to have a couple pairs of these laying around your farm. This is really helpful when you're cropping out your beds, you're cutting down at the soil level. This is cutting down any big plants, pruning, you know, taking down any sick plants. These are going to be definitely a really useful tool to have on any farm. This is a hori-hori. This is actually, seems kind of funny, but it's actually one of the most useful tools that we have on our farm. You can do just about anything with this thing. One of the sides is serrated, so you can cut rope, you can cut through tarps, you can do pretty much anything. You've also got this little hook right here. So it's got a million uses. When we transplant stuff, we use this thing to put stuff in the ground. We also use this to cut stuff out of the ground. We harvest onions, get underneath it and pry up. So this thing is really, it's like probably 15 bucks, and it's well spent. Everybody needs one of these or something similar to it. These are our harvesting bins. They're definitely not talked about enough, but they are super useful. Anytime they're ventilated, anytime that we're cutting our greens and stuff like that, we're putting them into here, throwing onto our scale, and you know, washing and drying from here. So I would recommend having a lot of these handy. Also what we deliver in, we'll put a plastic bag inside of here. We'll take it so that it doesn't get damaged. We've got bigger ones as well, and you know, a variety of sizes of these are a great thing to have. So these are my seeding trays, my seeding cells. This is definitely needed on our farm. I always have these on hand. This is where we plant all of our seeds into, like our lettuces and things like that. that we're going to transplant later. Not only do you need the cell trays, but you're also going to need these hard reservoir trays, and I recommend spending $5 or whatever it is to get the durable ones. So here's like your simplest post-production system you can possibly have. We've got Home Depot buckets, which we fill with water. We dunk our greens in there. And then we've got a table that we have a mesh pocket that we take the greens that are out of the water and we put it down into the mesh to dry. And then we basically take those and we bag them up. So you're gonna need something like this. It can be a million different designs. It can be super high tech, super low tech like ours, but you're definitely gonna need this for washing and drying your greens. You just can't give people dirty greens, that's just the thing. Another thing right next to it is these racks. These baker racks are really great, and I recommend getting a few of these to put your trays on. You can put tools on here. This is a great just place to store stuff, and I recommend any farmer having some of these. And as we're moving over, totes. These totes, waterproof totes, are great. You can leave them outside. You can put them under a shaded tree, but no water will get in them. So we keep our seeds and our, you know, kind of our more power tool stuff in there. But definitely going to need to have some of those too. Wheelbarrow is really good for, you know, moving your compost around, putting just heavy shit in there. It's really important to have. The greenhouse allows us to have a layer of protection and reliability. When you have a greenhouse, the humidity changes and temperature changes that aren't as drastic. It kind of slows that process of heating and cooling or drying and not down. So what ends up happening is the plants are not going through as much shock as outside. I found that's really helpful. Also, depending on what climate you're in, sometimes you need an area that's more moist, or you need an area that's less, getting less direct rainfall. So the greenhouse is a pretty great thing to have no matter where you are. It gets really hot in here. In the future, we'd like to do some insect netting on the bottom, so that we can raise up the sides without tons of insects coming in. Yeah, this is definitely one of the most important tools that you're going to use on your farm, so it's really worth investing in one if you're, you know, going to be growing, especially on the East Coast or anywhere that it gets cold up in northern climates. But a relatively good tool for any farm. A tool that's probably overlooked on a lot of farms is a whiteboard. It's a really good way to communicate to yourself and to other people that you're working with about what the plan for the day is, what you're low on, and it kind of just helps you really get a schedule on things and helps you, you know, you can walk around with it at the end of the day and kind of like look at your farm and figure out exactly what you need to do or what's going wrong or what's going right that you can record later on. So I definitely recommend any farm having a whiteboard, and I would just get it from the start. We just put it in recently, but it's been a really great investment. So the last tool that I'll talk about, and maybe the most important one that we use, is ground cover tarps. These come in a variety of different lengths and thicknesses and materials. You can also get ones with holes or without. This is, when we're finished with the bed, we try to cut most of everything out, and then we just put a tarp on top. And that pretty much gets everything out, and then we put down our fertilizer and compost on top and then plant into it. So basically this creates a system where we don't really have to till at all. You definitely don't need to buy everything at once either. You can kind of go incrementally. I think that's a smart idea, or just acquiring things. You can look on Craigslist and a lot of other places like that, and sometimes they're free or even really cheap options if you're willing to go used, which I think is a good idea. Yeah, and basically, you know, as your commitment level to your farm increases, you can really start making the bigger purchases to enable yourself to do that. Just because, you know, the farm will always repay if you're willing to grow a variety of crops or, you know, do something a little bit different, but the land is always willing to give. So yeah, I hope that these tools help you accomplish that. Yeah, I just really want to help people start their farm and do well, so this is the tools that we use primarily.